want to say to all of you, there is a lot of concern, boo-hooing, California, the wheels are coming off. Folks, pinch yourself. We are the envy of the world. If you look at the 10 largest market cap companies on the planet, none are in Europe. None are in Texas or New York. Folks, it's all happening here, and think about this. We are the world's 4th largest economy, larger than Germany or Japan. Germany has 83 million people, we have 39 million, and we have a larger economy. It means the average California is twice as productive as the most efficient Western European economies. If you look at our budget, it's going through the ceiling. It's growing dramatically, over 50% growth in the last 4 or 5 years, and a 3x growth since I was the state controller and chief financial officer of the state 20 years ago. Yet despite this robust economy and budget growth far above every other state in the country, we're failing in a lot of the key indicators that determine success for any country or state on the planet. Education, 38th in math, 33rd in English. There is no reason in the world, this is malpractice, that with the budget we have in the wealthiest state in the country, we are trailing. Housing, the worst homelessness problem in the United States. It costs almost 2x to build a home in California as it does in the average of all other American states. And business climate, and think about this, folks, according to Business Magazine, California ranks 51st out of the 50 states. How is this possible? They count Puerto Rico, and we're worse than them. Dead bottom, dead last. What we have today are 2 of the most thoughtful people in the state of California, one a business leader and philanthropist, another a publicly elected official, and a candidate for governor. We're going to talk about how California fixes the things that ail us and realizes its potential. Matt, I want to start out with you. You're a Harvard graduate with honors, an entrepreneur, and you've run one of the 10 largest cities in California. Say a word or two about what you've done to deal with the housing crisis.
Sure, thanks, Steve. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here with you all. Rick, great to sit down with you once again. As mayor of the largest city in Northern California, I have felt acutely the challenges of not being able to build housing. We have people pushed to the brink who are at fear of displacement. Housing costs are 50% or more of people's incomes in many neighborhoods in San Jose. We're almost victims of our own success. We have this growing economy, but we have not been able to fix the housing market, and it's our own failure. It's a failure of public policy. What I've done as mayor over the last few years is start to pull the cost out of the process. We dropped fees that in many cities, including in my own, were 10 to 20% of the cost of building a new home. And they all sound good in theory: park fees, traffic impact fees, affordable housing requirements. But at the end of the day, they just mean less housing, less supply, which pushes up costs for everyone. As we have pulled back those fees over the objections of some pretty organized advocates, we've seen housing get under construction. In fact, last year, 2,000 additional homes on top of our baseline broke ground. These are projects we'd entitled years ago that simply couldn't get financing. So when we speed up approvals, reduce costs, provide more certainty to the market, people invest and build the things we need, including housing, and it works. It's a more market-oriented approach. I know it's kind of unheard of in our big blue cities, but I've tried to take that approach, and it's paying off in San Jose.
So Rick, no one knows more about housing and real estate than you. The state needs to produce an extra 200,000 builds a year. If you're serious about fixing homelessness and giving people a chance at affordable housing, you know this better than anybody. What does the state need to do to fix this?
Well, Steve, thanks for having me. Matt, it's always good sharing the stage with you. Matt and I have been spending a lot of time together, and I just want to make this perfectly clear, and I appreciate the very kind applause when my name was said. If you like me, you're going to love Matt. Because he has actually done all the things that we talk about that need to be done in the state of California, and he's done it in his city with great success. And I'm a big believer that what is predictable is preventable, I'm also a great believer what is predictable will reoccur. And if we want to make some big changes in the state of California, we need to have somebody in the top office that actually comes with the experience of doing it. So as Matt was talking about in his hometown, the problem we have in California, and certainly we have in Los Angeles, is not only the cost of building housing, but it's the lack of predictability. Capital, as everybody in this room knows, goes where they feel their capital is safe and has a fair opportunity to grow and earn a return on it. Otherwise, it's going to go in another direction. We all do that. In LA, the fewest housing starts in the last 10 years was last year. It's unbelievable. I joke with people, Matt, find a crane in LA. People are not investing in LA. As a real estate company headquartered in LA, and for somebody who loves this city, we're not investing in LA because of the cost, but more so the unpredictability. Too many layers of approval. You don't know when you're going to get your final approval. It's too politicized, too partisan-sized. So I think what we need to do is go back to what made this state great. What made this state great, and continues to make it great, because we are a great state, is innovation. And let's look at all of these areas of problems that we have and solve them with best-in-class innovation that we know will change. We know we can produce homes at a much lower cost because of how we can build a home today versus how we built a home 30 years ago or 40 years ago. We know we can deliver power cheaper. We know we can deliver communications cheaper. We know we can do subtracting cheaper. But on the homeless front, I'll just end with this. There are organizations throughout the state and in the city of Los Angeles that have been incredibly successful. Downtown Women's Center, Union Rescue Mission, whatever the case is. There's a number of them. They provide housing and services at half the cost the city is doing it at, and they have a 90% effective rate. So instead of trying to reinvent the wheel to solve the homeless problem, fund and support these organizations that have the track record of doing it. Last year in the city of Los Angeles, we spent $1 million a person to get them off the street. You know how many people we got off the street? 1,500. Is that incredible? You've reduced homelessness by 1/3 in San Jose.
That's right. We've moved 4,000 people indoors in a much smaller city.
How about that? So yeah, exactly. He deserves a round of applause. I got to tell you something. When anybody tells you these problems can't be solved, show them the door. Every one of them can be solved.
Love that. Next thing, it's on everybody's mind, especially if you have kids in public schools, which my kids did. There's no reason in the world California should be in the bottom quintile, especially for the money we spend. Say a few words about the things you would do as governor to fix California's public school morass.
Yeah, it's a great question. Steve, I want to recognize your leadership. You've done a lot of work to advocate for evidence-based curriculum. We did have a big win last year around teaching phonics, science of reading in the classroom. Kind of shocking that that was a fight in California for years. But now we've got to implement it. So as governor, one of the first things I'll do is ensure that we're actually following through and holding districts and schools accountable for using curricula that actually works in practice. But the bottom line to fixing our public education system is the same on housing, homelessness, crime. It's about accountability. If you don't measure performance and have some kind of feedback loop or consequence, there's no accountability in the system, and you just kind of drift. And that's what we've been seeing. Mississippi is doing a better job of educating low-income students than California. And it's because, and you can look this up, it's called the Mississippi Miracle. It's more like a marathon. They've been working on this for over a decade. And they're not alone. Many other states, particularly red states, are recreating this success. They're actually setting goals and measuring and having a moment of accountability. They have focused on third grade reading levels because it's an inflection point. You go from learning to read to reading to learn. And if you're behind when you graduate third grade in terms of your literacy, you just fall progressively behind over time. It gets harder and harder to keep up. We could be doing a much better job. And again, as governor, I'll demand publicly hold everybody, our districts, our school leaders, our teachers' unions, accountable for measuring learning growth. And when kids are falling behind, particularly in those early years, we have to intervene with what's called high dosage tutoring. Get a local college kid who's trained in there with them as a mentor to sit down with them a couple times a week and get them up to speed. It works. We're funding this in San Jose, and it's working. Same thing goes for teachers. We need to be able to measure performance and reward teachers whose kids have outsized learning growth and provide training and remediation and coaching for those who aren't. And maybe not everyone should be a teacher. But if we're not measuring and making that transparent and managing around goals, we're never going to improve this system. And that, again, goes for every other system around our regulatory environment and so many other areas of life.
You should all Google this. Mississippi miracle. Mississippi, the second poorest state in the United States, 49 out of 50 states in per capita income, yet they're in the top 10 in performance. So it's not just a function of spending more money. Rick, no one knows more about accountability than you. You've been involved in all sorts of philanthropic things that have really moved the meter in LA. Say a word or two about public education in your mind and how we fix it.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said, and I'm sitting here struggling because I'm blanking on the name of the school that was just started. It started in Texas. They're in New York now. They're in Santa Monica here. It's an AI-driven model school.
KIP?
What is it? Alpha
Alpha.
School. So I went to how many people here know about Alpha School? I went to a presentation by the founder of the Alpha School. I was blown away. So this goes back to innovation. We're teaching kids the same way we've been teaching kids for hundreds of years. We just haven't changed it. And there's so much resistance to change. When I was chair of USC, I mean, dealing with the faculty, God bless them. I mean, that is a tough group of people to deal with. They just don't want to change. They don't want to change their ways. This Alpha School is having incredible success with a limited amount of time in the classroom, with great performance by the students. But I would also say this, Steve. My wife and I, for 3 decades plus now, have been very involved with the Catholic school system in the neighborhoods around Los Angeles that are at or below the poverty line. South LA, Watts, Skid Row, et cetera. Go to Verbum High School in Watts, 100% graduation rate. 100% of the students go to a college or a junior college. You go 4 blocks down the street to the public school, these are the same students, the same neighborhood has a 30% graduation rate. So part of this is, to Matt's point, we have just got to get out of the business of allowing this to happen and start holding people accountable. And actually, if teachers or the administration, the leadership is not performing, they need to go on and do other things.
That's right.
You would, just like you would manage any other operation, any other business, any other part of government. But I am so excited what the Catholic school system is doing, and they're doing it with very limited resources. And it's incredible the opportunity they're giving these kids. And then we're also building an ecosystem around them, like Strive, that has after-class tutoring and mentorship, so it's supporting them. And we also have an organization called Operation Progress, which assigns an LAPD officer to a family and a student that is helping encourage them, tutor them, and also giving them safe passage. Because most of these kids are either coming off the streets or they're coming out of the projects in downtown LA, South LA, and Watts. And that has been incredibly successful.
No, that's great. By the way, I salute you for what you've done. One of the things I learned as a chief financial officer of the state, and I'm not Catholic, the state of California could barely operate for a week without the Catholic hospital network and the Catholic public school system. It is the backbone of much of the state. I want to talk about who's most progressive in this gubernatorial race. There's a lot of talk in California. Who's going to be the most progressive? And yet, if you're progressive and you're too progressive, you might be driving the jobs out of the state. We've seen some of the biggest companies leave. The state of California, population-wise, for the first time ever, has shrunk in population. How do you reconcile this issue? Who's the real progressive if our business climate ranks 51st and it's beginning to shrink the budget? Say a word about how you reconcile that.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can't. I think that we're strangling ourselves, our economy, our opportunity with an overbearing regulatory environment and fees and taxes that are too high and too little predictability, and many of the things we touched on. I think if you're truly progressive, you need to be pro-growth. when you have a growing economy, when you make it easier to invest in and create the things that we need, from housing to more abundant energy, you expand opportunity. You create good, high-paying jobs. We were just talking about an example this morning. Well, I very much believe in investing in innovation in all spaces, including in clean energy. By over-regulating and pushing all of the refineries out of state, we're still buying gas. All we're doing now is shipping it from thousands of miles away, so it's less clean. And in the meantime, we're paying more. And then we lost the high-paying jobs and the tax base that came with refining it more cleanly and closely here in California. So it's sort of this, idealistic notion that in practice, it may sound progressive, but is actually undermining good, high-paying union jobs and making everybody poorer. And when government doesn't work, it's working people who pay the price. I grew up in a working class community, Watsonville, California, a little farming town where your strawberries come from. I can tell you, it's working class families who most rely on government getting it right for public education and infrastructure. And those with more means can often find an alternative in the private sector, find some other way to get what they need. So it's what motivates me to run, is to reform this state, to actually get back to basics and deliver housing that's more affordable, energy that's more affordable, better education. So I don't think it's progressive to pursue idealistic policies that in practice are actually making us poorer and leading California to have the highest unemployment rate in the country.
Great. Rick, why don't you jump in on that?
Well, this is why it's really great not being a candidate, because I never had much of a filter, but I really have no filter now. I think we've all got to come to the realization that what's happening now in the state of California just is not working for anybody. No matter what your demographic is, no matter what your income level is, it's just not working. And one of the problems I see is we've got really loud voices on the far left, and we got really loud voices on the far right. And the solutions to all of the problems and really to get things done is in the middle. So I'd like to put the far right and the far left on Noah's Ark and just go for a nice cruise for a while. and let's elect people who are middle right or middle left. I don't think it matters if you're middle right or middle left, as long as your arms are long enough to reach on each side of the aisle and work together. And it sounds, thanks. It sounds trite, but it's really true. And when you take a look at, Tom Steyer or Katie Porter or Swalwell, they're going as far left as they can possibly go. They are beating each other to get to the far left because everybody's trying to read the tea leaves, right? There's not going to be any solutions in that for us, folks. We're going to be in a world of hurt. Here's just what I know, and I guarantee it's every one of you and you guys up here. When I started my business about 35, 40 years ago, I knew one thing. If I dreamed big and worked hard, if I'm in Los Angeles, the state of California, rung by rung, I could pull myself up and have an opportunity to build a company, to fulfill my dreams, whatever that case is. The state had my back. The city had my back. There was an alignment of interests. Things weren't easy, but there's an alignment of interests. Instead of having all the conversations about beating up people that are successful and wealthy, if that's what you want to talk about, fine, go talk about it. But the real conversation, I think, in the state of California should be, how does everybody share in the success of California? How does everybody share in the wealth creation in California? How do we make every family more prosperous? If you want to measure success, measure family wealth in real dollars. Are we going to make every family in California more prosperous and wealthier? And at the same time, are we going to reduce the cost of living in California? Both can be accomplished. And if we do that, the economic explosion that's going to happen will just push this economy into an orbit that nobody can compete with. But right now, we're beating up our tech industry. We're beating up our ag industry, the largest ag industry in the United States. We're beating up, as Matt was saying, our petroleum industry by pushing everybody out. We're beating up our real estate industry, our manufacturing industry. It's crazy. Elections matter. leadership matters. But let's really focus on asking the question, how can everybody share in the great success that California has an opportunity to give? And build a solution around that.
Love it. You know, I think Rick's absolutely right. Democrats, and I'm a lifelong Democrat, are just all gravitating to the far left in the primary. The Republicans are doing the same thing on the far right. They're all hoping to get the MAGA endorsement.
Yeah.
We got to find ways to come together. If there's one issue that people ought to come together on, it is more public safety.
Right.
Matt runs a pretty gritty city of over 1 million people, San Jose. You're one of the few mayors in the country who's managed to produce the safest large city in the United States. Say a word about how you accomplished that despite all the chatter on the far ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, the policies we've pursued that are pretty common sense, like staffing our police department, investing in training and recruitment, deploying a network of automated license plate readers that gives us better real-time intelligence, partnering with our DA to look at data together and break cycles of repeat offense and try to advocate to the judicial bench and the behavioral health department at the county to actually intervene in these cycles and break them. These are very common sense, and yet, you know, to Rick's point, Steve, your point, you will get an incredible amount of negative feedback in doing that. I've sat in many council meetings where you'll have a couple hundred advocates screaming at you that you're cruel, evil, racist, whatever variation you want to pick. And look, the truth is California can be the safest state in the country without returning to the era of mass incarceration. We did over-incarcerate for addiction. And when we shut down our mental health hospitals, our carceral system became our de facto mental health hospitals. But now it's our streets. And I don't think we're any better off. We've had 50,000 people die on our streets in California over the last decade, nearly half from overdose and suicide, people who are unwell. So I think the future, and I think it really comes down to speaking directly to the voters and voters being engaged. And I hope we can talk about that. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but we've got to offer an alternative vision that's a middle way, as Rick put it, that says if you're committing serious crime and that's a choice, there's accountability. If that criminality is driven by addiction and mental illness, we're going to do everything we can to get you the services and help you need, but we're not going to just return you to the community untreated to harm someone else. And that shouldn't be controversial, but today, our policies in California don't align with what I just said, even though I think 95% of people agree. So I think it really comes down to being able to give voice to common sense policies and pursue that case and build a coalition of us in the middle, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or independent, who want what's best for the state and are willing to take on those loudest voices and in many cases most organized interests at the two extremes.
So for both of you, you've talked about people are disillusioned with the legislature. Again, Democrats running the left, Republicans running the right, we're not managing the budget. Rick, you've started a group called Steadfast California. Matt, you've got your Back to Basics group. I've started something called the 21st Century Alliance to come up with common sense, bipartisan solutions to education, to homelessness, to improving the state's business climate so we can have a bigger budget for all of us. Say a word about the importance of being involved, not just in the governor's race, and I hope you're all involved with whichever candidate you like, perhaps the one sitting here, but that you're involved in between elections, because you're only going to get as good a governor as you all weigh in to participate. Rick, say a word about what you've done with Steadfast California.
Sure. So Steadfast was started, I created Steadfast right after the fires with the acknowledgement that the devastation is too great, the challenges of rebuilding are too large for government alone to do it. And really public-private partnerships are the way forward. And mobilizing the private sector with innovation, putting a group of leaders around a table that were all best in their industry, identify problems, solve the problems, package them up, and hand them off to the city, the county, or the state. And Steadfast has had great success in doing that. And I'm very proud of what they've done, from rebuilding parks, helping opening schools, developing an AI model to plan check in the matter of hours rather than months. We're delivering modular homes for free to people who are at the poverty rate, especially in Altadena, to move back in their community, et cetera. And we came up with the solutions for underground power lines. So a wide spectrum. But I do just want to add on to one thing that Matt was talking about. And I couldn't agree with him more on the safety side. As many of you know, I was the police commissioner in LA for many years. And we got crime down working with Bill Bratton to levels not seen since 1950. All of it, again, is fixable. It starts at the top. Everybody in this room that is managing an organization knows that it's the culture of your organization that leads to results. If the governor of California says, here's my top 3 priorities, we're going to reduce the cost of living in California, we're going to have the safest cities in California, we're going to be compassionate, but we're also going to be strict and make sure that our homeless population gets help and gets off the streets to protect our neighborhoods. If the leadership sets the tone and builds a team around a culture that is into problem solving, things will happen incredibly fast. That's how all of you in this room became successful. Right, Steve? That's how you became successful. That's how you've done it in San Jose. And we've just got to get out of the business of not having the courage to say some things that sometimes are tough, sometimes are not quote unquote politically correct, but need to be discussed for the betterment of the state or our individual cities. And I think all of us are obligated, and what we're going to be doing at StepFast is taking it to the next level and engaging a lot of the private sector to help move the needle in this region on policies, elections, because we got to change the leadership and we got to change the policies. And working for 3 mayors, Tom Bradley, Dick Reardon, and Jim Hahn, I know that every one of those mayors, and I know Matt does it too, they use the private sector so smartly to engage and move the conversation and force results. And we need to do that now, and that's what I'm going to be focused on.
Well, I agree with everything Rick just said, and I was involved in helping to start this organization called Back to Basics, an external advocacy group, because the truth is democracy isn't free, and good governance isn't inevitable. To some extent, to a large extent, the quality of governance is a reflection of the engagement and the education and the organizational capacity of the voters. It really needs to be a reflection of the voters. When it's not, it's a problem, because you have highly organized special interests that fight to get their piece of the budget, their bit of regulatory capture that benefits them. And the only way we're going to fix California, it's not enough to just elect a common sense, moderate, pragmatic problem solver, whatever you want to call it, to be governor. California is very decentralized. You've got school boards, city councils, transit boards, counties, the hidden level of government that has so much leverage. And I think Rick's right, leadership matters. The culture's set from the top, but you also have a lot to say about the culture we create in California. And I know in this room you invest a lot in your professional lives and your business and the work you do as a private professional. I imagine you invest a lot in your private family life. But there's a third sphere of life, your civic life, that matters. And I know it's always an afterthought because we're all busy people, but I would just leave you with the thought that it's really up to us as citizens. We can organize and demand better, but we have to be involved all the time, not just in the last few weeks before an election. And that's why these kinds of organizations are so important for ongoing civic engagement, learning about the issues, being in touch with and talking to candidates, and demanding more of them. You can help set that tone bottom up as well.
We're down to the very, very end. I'm going to give each of you a question, quick 30-second answer from each of you.
Do Matt first.
Do Matt first?
Well, because he might need the minute.
Okay.
Well, because I think it's more important.
We'll do Matt first.
Thank you.
What is it?
Let's say you become governor, and I hope you do. After 4 or 8 years, what are going to be that one thing that people remember and they say, that guy really fixed or improved, or what metric are we going to walk away knowing about Matt Mahan?
I was going to say it a different way. I think Rick gave his metric earlier, and I think it may even be better than mine. I was going to say it's about the cost of living versus income, and we're upside down in California, and we've got to bring down cost of housing and energy. Those are policy failures, and we've got to have a growing economy that lifts incomes so that people are wealthier and have more prosperity and opportunity. But Rick said it a lot more succinctly than me earlier, so I'm sorry. You might want to reiterate I thought you said it really well earlier about wealth.
Yeah.
Well,
Rick, I've got to ask you, you've exceeded, I think, your wild expectations financially as a civic leader. You've done it all. A lot of people were hoping you'd run for governor. You decided not to.
Sorry.
You didn't have to throw yourself, I know, he was happy. You didn't have to throw yourself into this. What made you decide to come out so strongly for Matt Mahan?
well, listen, Matt and I have known each other, and I've been impressed watching him. I love watching successful people. And, you know, people always say, do you get excited by being around really wealthy, successful people? And the answer is, yeah, but I also really get excited about being around Charlie, who's in our landscaping team at the Grove that does such an incredible job. I just love people that are passionate about what they do, and they're successful at it. That's why I've always admired Matt. So we had talked for a long time. The minute I decided I'm not going to run for governor, the first call I made was Matt. And I said, I know this isn't easy. Last minute, you got to jump in. He said, I got to think about it. I got to do it. And God bless him for doing it. And I really mean it. We have an opportunity in this state to get somebody with a proven track record that's going to change it. Let's not miss this opportunity. You got to tell your friends, you got to tell your families, you got to get excited about it. But I would tell you one thing, Steve. I believe so greatly in the greatness of this state. We are so lucky to live here. And if we get the right leadership, it doesn't have to be 100% correct. We could just be 50% correct, and we're going to do a hell of a lot better. The opportunities for our families. So if you want to also ask me, what's the measurement of success in addition to what I said about income and lower health? The measurement of success is I'd love to have every young couple and family and smart, hardworking people say, I want to move to California because that's where my dreams are going to come true. That's the way it used to be, and I think we can get back there again if we all participate and get involved.
I love that.
Great. So before we end up, let me just say, you're going to have an incredible day here at the Montgomery Conference. I hope you leave this somewhat inspired. One of the quotes that Mayor Mahan has, which I love, is, if you're not very happy with what's going on in Washington, the best resistance is results. Yeah. And I think we should hold all of our candidates to that standard. But I want to hold all of you to the same one as well. There's an axiom in politics that great leadership requires great followership. And I hope wherever you are on the spectrum, you will take the opportunity to get involved in this this gubernatorial race. Hope we've inspired all of you. Have a great day. Thank you for being part of this.